Namaste. Some people wash their hands 20 times a day, fearing contamination. There are others who want orderliness and symmetry in everything. Few constantly double check on the things like lock, appliances, or switches. This behavior sounds very normal and desirable. In fact, as kids, we were always nudged to put things in its right place. But it was surprising that hobbies like stamp collection are even termed as OC, obsessive compulsive disorder. Well, obsessive compulsive disorder is a troublesome, impairing for subject and difficult to treat. So today we have Mr. Himanshu Vaidya, our psychoanalysis consultant, to discuss this topic. Namaste, sir. Sir, can we start with what is obsessive compulsive disorder? You need to unmute.
This is a range of disorders where the core difficulty is of repetition of something. This repeating of something which otherwise is not required and which creates an impairment to the person and the people around him. This is the core feature. Now, this repetition can take various forms. It can be repetitive thoughts only, which we call obsessions, or it may be repetitive actions only, which we call compulsions, or it may be both repetitive thoughts followed by repetitive action associated with those thoughts, in which case we say both obsessions and compulsions both are present. Now, this repetitiveness can also take up various other forms like hoarding, collecting something, uh, becoming fanatic about being something being orderly or disorderly, and similar other forms of repetition, like for example, pulling hair from one's head. Some people have this habit of pulling hair out of one's head. It can also be what is called excoriation, or you keep scratching on your skin something. So if you have a pimple, you keep scratching the pimple so that it does not heal. The moment it's about to heal, you scratch again. Okay? So those kinds of repetitive behaviors are also covered by this chapter. So essentially it is a range of thoughts and behaviors which are repetitive in nature, which are compulsive in nature, and highly impairing from standpoint of biology, psychology, and social function.
So, what are the disorders that are covered in this chapter under the DSM-5?
Uh, the first one is obsessive compulsive disorder, where uh, we have obsessions, which means repetitive thoughts. You are obsessed with something, so you keep thinking about it all day. And this is not a constructive obsession, because uh, constructive engagement with something, we don't call it obsession, we rate it very highly as devotion, as dedication, as concentration. And that is behind all great things done in this world. So there's nothing wrong with repetition per se, but this is a dysfunctional repetition. So in first obsessive compulsive disorder, we have three types: repeated thoughts, uh, repetitive actions, or both. And the most common are, in terms of thoughts, uh, thoughts like uh, something wrong is going to happen, or something will get stolen from my house, or if I don't do X, Y, Z, something will happen. Most common compulsions are washing of hands, checking of locks, counting to certain numbers before doing anything. Like even before boarding a bus, the person might say that I will count till 20 and only then board the bus. If the bus comes before it, I will not board the bus. And he might lose two buses in his ritual of counting till 20. This repetitive thing we call a ritual. So the first disorder is obsessive compulsive disorder, where you can have only obsession, which means only repetitive thoughts, only compulsion, repetitive actions, or both obsession and compulsion. The second is uh, body dysmorphic disorder, where a person believes something is wrong with his body and keeps attending to it, and uh, others are not able to see that difficulty. So he might say, something is wrong here, I have to do something about it. When you and I cannot see anything wrong with that part of the face. Some of them can say, my muscles have gone weak, when the doctor's report says nothing of that is true. Some of them will say, this part of my body, I don't feel as though there is something. And this can easily go to the level of delusion, where you slowly slide from OC to delusion, when a person says, this part of my body is missing and I keep thinking about it all the time. So his thinking about it all the time is an OC feature, but his unshakable belief that this part of the body is missing is a delusional trait, it's a psychotic trait. So in those cases, you slowly slide from the OC into the psychotic spectrum. So the second is body dysmorphic disorder, where one believes something is wrong with one's body and one spends considerable amount of time and energy to set it right. And his belief is such that anyone else cannot see that anything is really wrong with his body. The third is the hoarding disorder, which is a disorder of collecting things. So people collect stamps, they collect blocks, they collect coins, they collect crockery, they collect utensils, they collect clothes, they collect bed sheets, they collect all sorts of things which are not necessary. And even after the use is done, the articles become old. They are no longer used for the last 2 years or 3 years. The person is not able to discard them. There is an incapacity of discarding something, and therefore everything piles up and the whole house becomes like a storeroom. So this is the hoarding disorder. Then we have uh, this pulling of hair called trichotillomania. It's a strange name, trichotillomania. It's a mania of pulling hairs, the trichotillomania. So this trichotillomania is a strange disorder where you just keep pulling hair from your head. And although it may look painful to some, the person does not feel it so painful. He actually enjoys it. And this may go to the extent that certain parts of the head go without hair. And a kind of a self-inflicted baldness sets in a local way on the skull. So trichotillomania is also a OC disorder. And then we have excoriation disorder, where you keep playing with the skin or a pimple or a wound, right? Where you actually get slight pain, but you don't care about it. And you keep playing with it again and again. And it usually starts bleeding or starts getting damaged. But you find it to be compulsive, you cannot resist it. And some people do it with their hands and nails, most common. Some people even use something like a safety pin to keep picking like this. In which case, the wounds can become deeper and can also go septic in a localized way. Nothing serious, but they can get worse because of use of certain metallic objects. So these five essentially are the issues in this chapter, which have a great amount of psychological causation, where we can deal with psychotherapy, uh, deal with them with psychotherapy. There is there are two other disorders which are caused either by chemicals, addictive materials, or by medication. Now, certain things are very have to be clear about the entire chapter. One, we are on an anxiety spectrum. So, lot of most of the OC disorders will have high amount of anxiety hidden in the unconscious mind. We are on the OC spectrum essentially. Two, people should be spending around 1 hour every day in whatever is their obsession or compulsion for that to qualify in this chapter. And three, it has to cause significant amount of impairment in functioning of the individual. And that is very easy to understand because it's a very, very irritating and painful disorder. I have heard many people say that given a choice between psychosis and OCD, they would prefer psychosis. And this has to continue for more than 1 month or 3 months to be really considered a serious disorder. If something comes and goes quickly, then we don't have to really worry about it. One last point, till now we were looking at OCD essentially as, I mean the entire OC spectrum, entire chapter, essentially as driven by something psychological. In the last 10 years, people have realized there is also a very strong biological component to it, just as there is one in bipolar. And therefore, uh, the medication on OCD also has become slightly better. And in many cases, we find OCD has very strong biological basis, whereas in many cases, we find it has very strong psychological basis, and in some cases, both. Especially with relation to trichotillomania, uh, it strangely it has to do with weight on the head. If the hair on the head grow very high, not very, I mean, the mass of the hair becomes very large, it almost as though the weight of it is compressing something below. And that is leading to trichotillomania. That is the presentation which many people give. And the moment they remove that hair load, the trichotillomania automatically comes down, which almost means as though some nerve or something is getting compressed there, leading to this kind of trouble. So there is also this biological aspect to it, may not be 100% determining, but substantially determining of the disorders that we are talking about. So these are the five essential disorders: obsessive compulsive disorder, uh, uh, hoarding, body dysmorphic disorder, trichotillomania, and excoriation. These are the five essential disorders which are largely psychological in this chapter.
So what is the psychoanalytic causation of this obsessive compulsive and relative disorder?
Uh, it has been a subject of extensive discourse within psychoanalysis. Every school has given some causation theory to explain OCD. Let's look at them one by one. And the common thread between all of them is this, that there are three elements involved. One, generation of high amount of anxiety. Two, there being in the developmental phase of the person some fixation on repetition. So you have anxiety generation, fixation on repetition, and then some developmental problem in the developmental process. So because of which the person regresses back, right? And the anxiety is generated, and the anxiety generated goes into that repetition. So we have high amount of anxiety, strong repetitive tendencies, and some stress in the developmental process where the person is stuck, cannot move ahead, so regresses back. Right? So there is the anxiety from that process as well as anxiety from some prior process, and all of that gets into the repetitive element in the personality. And this repetitive element finds out some subject for repetition. And there comes a very important element, what I call the story of the symptom. That if a person has OC of washing hands, one can ask a counter question, why did he not develop a OC related to checking of locks? Why did he develop only the OC of washing hands? Which means it has some significance to his unconscious story. Whatever is the symptom, right, is coming out of the story of the unconscious. So this is very important, that what is the story of the symptom, because the story of the symptom will tell us at where in the unconscious mind in the developmental process the person has been blocked, arrested, or frustrated. Now let us, this is the common thing across all theories. The generation of anxiety, strong element of repetition in the personality, and frustration in some developmental process, because of which the anxiety is generated in that frustration, some prior anxiety, both go into the repetitive phase, and based upon the story of the person where he is frustrated at the end, mostly a subject of repetition is chosen. Now let us look at it one by one in terms of the schools. The Freudian explanation is that it is essentially a inability to resolve the Oedipus complex. So the person is frustrated at the Oedipus complex because he cannot give up the Oedipal object. There is castration anxiety because he is not able to give up the Oedipal object and decide to be like the parent of the same gender. Therefore, there is a continuous fear of attack from the parent of the same gender. And this is what Freud calls castration anxiety. And this anxiety is created. Secondly, because he cannot resolve the Oedipus, he cannot move ahead. So he starts moving backwards into the anal phase. So there is anxiety in the phallic phase, inability to cross the phallic phase, therefore regression from the phallic phase into the anal phase, bringing with that regression the anxiety of the Oedipal phase into the anal phase, and activating the repetitive part of the anal phase and picking up some subject from the anal phase which corresponds in some way to what is most significant in the Oedipal part, right, in the Oedipal phase. And that is how the obsessive compulsive disorder is created. So it is essentially you are channelizing anxiety of the Oedipus into the obsession or compulsion. And if you can resolve the Oedipus, anxiety will not be generated and you will not require any obsession or compulsion to channelize that anxiety. In that sense, the obsession or compulsion is like a cage in which the anxiety is bound. It's a tool to bind the free anxiety, which otherwise will lead to high amounts of disintegration anxiety, almost a panic kind of situation. So you avoid that kind of a catastrophic free anxiety by binding it into an obsession or a compulsion.
Correct.
So this is the Freudian element, Freudian explanation. The did you have a question?
No, no, sir. Go ahead. I'll have it on.
The okay. The second Freudian explanation related to Freud explained towards his end of his life the same thing in a different way. He said uh, there is something called death instinct, and repetition is a function of the death instinct. So in OC, what happens is the death instinct being very strong, the aggression and anxiety generated in the Oedipal phase are very high. The repetitiveness of the anal phase is very high, and therefore you do obsession. And as a result of obsession, you are not only channelizing the anxiety, but you are also deriving the pleasure from it. What appears painful on the surface in a masochistic way is very pleasurable. Therefore, trichotillomania or excoriation or washing of hands, it may lead to scars on the skin, and the surface part of the mind we feel it very painful, but one deeper part of mind finds it very pleasure giving in a perverse masochistic way. So he brought in the element of that instinct related to repetition and masochism as the goal of that activity, even if the activity started from the Oedipal non-resolution. So apart from Oedipal non-resolution and regression, there was this death instinct force and the ultimate objective of masochism, which also was an outcome of death instinct, which uh, were playing a part in OCD. Second explanation comes from Klein, where she says that generalization of anxiety is fine, but on the point of generation of anxiety, she has a difference. So she will not say that anxiety is generated only in the Oedipal phase. She will say that if the split is open, the anxiety may continuously be generated because of the open split, and that anxiety may have to be invested into an obsession or compulsion. Similarly, uh, the Cohusian school will say that because of a weak self, the ego disintegrates, and the disintegration of the ego creates anxiety, and that has to be reinvested into an obsession. And therefore, the uh, way out would be to strengthen the ego rather than go into the resolution of the Oedipus. And ISTDP would have a separate explanation. They would say it is the torturous and murderous rage towards the parents which is creating anxiety. So anxiety there is a signal anxiety. It is not an anxiety in the face of an event. It is anxiety because some other unpleasant effect is coming up towards the surface. So it is this signal anxiety which is very high because of deep-seated torturous and murderous rage towards the attachment figures. And if you can bring out that rage, there would be no need for anxiety and therefore consequently no OC. But what has happened is this approach has not given very good results. So it seems that it may not be only signal anxiety, it may be a real anxiety of the phenomena, maybe Oedipal, maybe Cohusian, or maybe Kleinian. So we have different kind of explanations on how anxiety is generated and how that generated anxiety gets into a repetitive process, and how a very specific theme of repetition is chosen. This is how psychoanalysis explains the causation of the OCD spectrum disorders.
Each school has a different explanation and they write in their own way. So, sir, how does psychoanalysis proceed with the healing of obsessive compulsive and this related disorders?
You rightly said we have different groups of patients for which different schools may apply. So you may have one group of patients where they have OC spectrum disorder, but it seems to be coming out of Freudian explanation. Some have the same disorder where the roots seem to be in the Kleinian explanation. So each to his own, we have to customize our approach based upon the case history and what we find from the case history and talking to the person about the causation of the disorder. Based on the causation, a particular approach in psychoanalytic psychotherapy is taken. In general, when we are dealing with OC, except for a small group which is fragile, most of the OC group is not fragile. And therefore, we don't have to start with a Cohusian slow approach. We can directly go to Freudian or Kleinian approach or ISTDP approach, whatever we feel is best suited to that person. And with regard to the fragile group, which is a very, very small group, we have to start with Cohusian because if we have a picture of a OC with fragility, extreme fragility, then there have been some uh, cases written where under the psychoanalytic or other forms of therapy, the person actually deteriorated from OC into a brief psychosis. And after the therapy was withdrawn, the person recovered into OC, which made it very clear that it was a therapy which was leading the person from OC to brief psychosis. But this is a very, very small group. And you can make it out from the case history and by looking at the person, talking to the person. But for a larger group, I would say almost 90%, we can start with whatever school fits in. For 10%, the fragile group, we have to start with a very long cohesion period and then start with the school that applies. In terms of frequency, we would be looking at all the three categories: mild, moderate, and severe. What is the intensity? How deep is the causation? What is the resistance? Will it be easy to reach? Will it be difficult to reach? Is the person psychologically oriented? And is the person cooperative? This is very important because in the OC spectrum, we see a kind of an obstinacy. Some sort of obstinacy often is accompanied, some stubbornness, some obstinacy is accompanied in the OC spectrum. Especially people who have very high need for order or disorder, or those who hoard things. It generally is accompanied by very strong stubbornness or obstinacy. So the cooperation, flexibility, and openness of the person is important. In terms of frequency, we can look at once a week, 1 year, to 3 times a week, 2 years. That would be the range from mild to severe in terms of psychoanalytic psychotherapy. Complementing it with CBT works also. In case of mild OCD, CBT produces very good results. So that is also a very good approach to complement with. And holistic healing also has its own role to play to complement psychoanalytic psychotherapy.
Sir, so how would holistic healing help here? When you say holistic healing helps, so how would it help?
Uh, there are three essential elements here. One, the generation of anxiety. Many of the holistic healing tools, they help in reducing anxiety. They help in increasing relaxation. And this is very important because, like in case of anxiety chapter patients, people in OCD spectrum will also face continuous sense of agitation, and they will be longing for a state of peace. Holistic healing techniques like Reiki, pranic healing, uh, Tai Chi, hypnotherapy, all of them can produce quite an amount of relaxation and reduction in anxiety.
Okay, but when it is
Certain,
practiced by
yeah,
self, right? This is essentially when
it
it
can
is
be both.
practiced by self. Okay.
It can be both. Yeah. Initially, the person may not be so proficient to practice it on oneself, and therefore we may need help of somebody who is uh, providing it on a social basis or even on a professional basis. In course of time, the person can learn it by himself because these are very easy things to learn, Reiki or pranic healing. So he can use them for reduction of anxiety. He can use them for deferment of impulse. Uh, he can use them for investing the mind somewhere else, because if he is not occupied, generally the obsessive thinking starts becoming more intense. All of them, certain forms of yoga, certain forms of breathing, certain forms of uh, exercises, they help in reduction of anxiety. There is also a large body of knowledge now where how body work helps in overcoming anxiety. Amount work, being in a gym, yogic exercises also helps. Homeopathy also has certain things to offer. So if we put all of this together, we can create a complementing holistic healing package for a person most suited to him, whatever works for him, whatever he believes in, and that can help to complement the central work of psychoanalytic psychotherapy, some cases complemented by CBT, and in extreme cases, complemented also by psychiatric drugs.
So, sir, basic awareness always helps. In this case, how does patient education, what kind of patient education is needed, and how would it help?
Patient edu, yeah, it's very important because uh, encouraging the patient to believe in his strength to defer the impulse is very important, because at some level he develops a sense of helplessness against the intruding thought or the intruding propulsion to act. Second, many of these cases, this is one of the areas where Freudian explanation generally works very well. So I would say even almost in 50 to 60% of the cases, the Freudian explanation helps. The difficulty for the therapist is to get into the Oedipus in terms of talking to the person, because the Oedipal dynamic is so severely repressed in society. If in psychoeducation, we can give some education in general, not to say that you have it, but in general, that these are the causes of OCD. We don't know what is working in you, but any of this can be there. Something else can also be there. This kind of third person, how do you say it? Uh, Almost a third person awareness building, or in general talking, prepares the person better to ultimately face the Oedipal dynamic and be more open about it with the therapist. So my feeling is either somebody does it as a form of psychoeducation or the therapist has to do it. But if this is done, rest of the process is much quicker. And I would say once the Oedipal or the split dynamic is clearly understood, right, then it becomes much faster. If somebody keeps resisting that very dynamic, then it becomes difficult. So psychoeducation is very important because particularly in India, we see OCD accompanied very pervasively, not pervasively, but let me say very often by something to do with gods and goddesses. That some people develop obsessions or compulsions where in the whole ritual, the gods and goddesses have a role to play. And that most often involves an Oedipal dynamic. So is important. Thirdly, for deferment of impulse. Fourth, to tell the doctor or the therapist what is working and not working. So correspondingly, treatment plan can go on. Fifth, the person can marshal a set of holistic healing tools with which to help himself, also by learning them, some of them. And lastly, uh, he can seek help from some social support groups which can support him in this journey, because in all psychological sicknesses, belonging to social support groups, doing something good for society, meeting a large number of people, having social connection with large number of people, having a third space other than office and home where person spends at least half an hour a day, all of these are very salutary to all mental health problems, including the OC spectrum problems.
Superstition is, I guess, something which is uh, rised out of the same OC, obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that is also important because in villages especially, people
Yeah.
may believe that the person is repeating something because of being possessed by a spirit. The spirit is making him do certain things.
Or guided by something. So, sir, how
Yes,
does
yes. So that discourse, just a word, that
yeah.
discourse takes you out of the scientific area.
Hmm. So, and closes one angle. I mean, your ability to
Yeah, yes.
see
And
another.
psychoeducation can help you not to get distracted to that non-scientific area.
So, sir, how does family member or caregiver education is helpful in this kind of a disorder?
The family members have to be very encouraging and empathic. It is very important to be encouraging and empathic so that over a period of time, the person is able to practice deferment of impulse, engage with the family members when an impulse is coming out, or create a schedule so he can minimize the incidents. This may not work in severe cases, but in mild to moderate cases, this definitely has quite an amount of significance. Secondly, they should know what is working or not working in terms of therapy or medication, and help the doctor or the therapist appropriately take forward the treatment plan. Three, they should be able to uh, help the person in overcoming the social stigma, if there is one, and give him confidence. Because the person may find it very embarrassing once he discovers that he has an impulse he cannot control, and the impulse is socially embarrassing. Like going to a marriage and start washing your hands 5 times there. So this is an embarrassing situation. Or you have to go somewhere and everyone is on time when you keep checking the lock 5 times. And everyone in the car is held up because you are going to check the lock 5 times. So these are socially very difficult situations. It requires a lot of accommodation and empathy. Otherwise, family members would get angry and pounce upon the person out of irritation and anger, and that would create a situation slightly worse than otherwise. Family members also have to know what is happening to him so that they don't think it is something conscious or a tantrum or just a a ploy, a trick to take revenge upon them. They also have to know the biological basis so that they see it as a sickness and not as a kind of a trick. Family members also have to help the person create a set of holistic healing tools and take the person where they believe they have a good teacher or a good practitioners of these tools. Family members can also help the person connect to the right social sources and avoid certain social situations or not take him to the social situations. Not insist. I mean, if he wants to come, it is okay, but not forcibly insist where he is not comfortable to go because of his problem. And lastly, they should not develop secondary issues of anxiety or anger because of living with an OC person. It's very easy to develop secondary anger, irritation by living with a person who has OC traits. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult.
True. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. And we have covered today obsessive compulsive and related disorder. In our subsequent videos, we would be covering such other disorders from the DSM-5. Uh, do watch our coming videos, and you can even write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.